All right, welcome IB Economics students. We are about to dive deep into the really fascinating world of microeconomics. That's Unit 2 of your syllabus. We're going to explore all those hidden forces that shape our everyday decisions, from the stuff we buy to how businesses actually run. This is where economics gets, well, personal. So here's our game plan for this one. We're going to kick things off with the absolute basics, demand and supply. Then we'll get into what happens when markets kind of mess up. And finally, we'll peek inside the minds of firms and see the competitive arenas they battle in. You ready? Let's do it. Okay, let's get right to the heart of it all. I'm talking about that constant dance between buyers and sellers. Seriously, this fundamental relationship, it's the engine that drives every single market out there. And we're about to see exactly how it works. So this is basically the golden rule for anyone who buys anything, which is all of us, right? It's super intuitive. Think about it. When the price of those new sneakers you've been eyeing suddenly goes up, what happens? Yeah, you're probably less likely to buy them. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. This whole idea only holds true if everything else stays exactly the same. It's a key concept economists call ceteris paribus. And check this out. Here's that law in action. See this graph? Just look at how, as the price, that's on the vertical axis, drops, the quantity people want to buy, over on the horizontal axis, shoots right up. That classic downward slope, that's the visual signature of the law of demand. You're going to see this pattern everywhere. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting, and it's a super important distinction for your exams. A change in price, that just moves us to a different point along the curve that's already there. But what if something else changes? Like, say, you get a raise and your income doubles. Well, that's when the entire curve actually shifts. It's this really subtle but absolutely crucial difference between a change in quantity demanded and a change in demand itself. So what are these non-price game changers? Well, just think about it for a second. If a huge celebrity is suddenly seen wearing a certain brand, the demand for it might just skyrocket, right? That's all about tastes and preferences. Or what if you expect the price of a new phone to drop next month? Your demand for it today is going to fall. See? These are the kinds of forces that can totally reshape an entire market. Okay, let's flip the script now. Let's look at things from the producer side of the street. For them, a higher price is basically a giant green light. It's a signal that says, hey, ramp up production, sell more. Because, assuming all else is equal, there's more profit up for grabs. And here it is, the proof in graphical form. You see that upward slope? That, my friends, is the supply curve in all its glory. As the price climbs, the quantity that firms are willing and able to supply, well, it climbs right along with it. It's a really beautifully simple relationship when you see it like this. But just like with demand, you gotta remember that the supply curve is not set in stone. Not at all. Imagine a new technology comes along that makes building cars way, way cheaper. What happens? Well, suddenly car companies can supply more vehicles at every single price point. The whole curve shifts to the right. And that is a total game changer for the market. So what happens when these two powerful forces, supply and demand, finally collide? Well, we reach what's called market equilibrium. This is the sweet spot, the point where they are in perfect balance. At this one price, every single product that's supplied finds a buyer, and every single buyer who wants the product finds one. It's this awesome moment of harmony in the market. And right at this equilibrium point, we hit something called maximum market efficiency. And you can just think of this as the ultimate win-win situation. Consumers, they get a great deal because they're paying less than they might have been willing to. And producers, they make a healthy profit, selling for more than their minimum price. It's pretty much the best possible outcome for society as a whole. But here's a question that's going to take our understanding to the next level. We know that demand falls when price rises, sure, but by how much? Is it a little dipped or a massive plunge? The answer to that question lies in a really powerful concept called elasticity. Price elasticity of demand, or what we call PED, is kind of like our secret weapon for measuring just how sensitive consumers are to price changes. It's a simple formula, but it tells us exactly how much the quantity demanded will wiggle for every 1% change in price. I'm telling you, it's an incredibly powerful tool for predicting how a market is going to behave. So what does this PED value actually tell us in the real world? Well, if the value is less than 1, we say demand is inelastic. Think of something like life-saving medicine. People are still going to buy it, pretty much no matter what, even if the price goes up. But if the value is greater than 1, demand is elastic. Think of a specific brand of soda. If they raise their price just a little, customers will flock to a competitor in a heartbeat. And here's a little pro tip for you. Elasticity isn't this constant one-size-fits-all thing. On a typical straight-line demand curve, you'll actually find that demand is more elastic up at the higher prices, because, it's a bigger chunk of your budget, and it becomes more inelastic down at the lower prices. It's a really fascinating dynamic to keep in mind. Okay, so up until now, we've been looking at the market in its ideal state, right? Where everything is perfectly efficient, but what happens when things go wrong? Let's now explore what happens when the market, when it fails to deliver. Now, market failure is a huge topic in your IB course, and it very often boils down to one key problem, something called externalities. These are basically the hidden costs, or sometimes benefits, that spill over and affect people who had nothing to do with the original transaction. Like the pollution from a factory that harms the health of people living nearby. Those residents didn't buy or sell the factory's products, but they're still paying a price. So, if the market is messing up, who comes to the rescue? Well, this is where the government often steps in. They're armed with a whole range of tools to try and nudge the market back towards a better, more efficient outcome. And believe me, governments have a whole arsenal of tools they can use. They can slap taxes on things like gasoline to try and get us to use less of it. They can offer subsidies to promote things we want more of, like clean energy. Or they can set price controls, like a minimum wage, to protect workers. Each one of these tools is designed to correct a very specific type of market failure. All right, let's switch gears a bit. Now we're going to pull back the curtain and take a look inside what's often called the black box of the firm. What really makes these businesses tick? How on earth did they make their decisions? The theory of the firm is what's going to give us the answers. This is where we really get into the nitty-gritty of business, okay? We're going to explore how firms are constantly juggling costs and revenues and how they strategize to achieve their ultimate goal. And, as you'll definitely see in your studies, that goal is usually, but hey, not always, to make as much profit as they possibly can. And finally, let's zoom back out and look at the bigger picture again. Because firms don't operate in a vacuum, right? They exist in this competitive landscape that shapes their every single move. And as we're about to see, not all markets are created equal. Not by a long shot. The best way to think about it is as a spectrum of competition. On one extreme end, you've got the Wild West of perfect competition, with just countless small firms all battling it out. Then, on the complete opposite end, you have the iron fist of a monopoly, where one single giant firm rules the entire market. And of course, in between those two, you've got all sorts of interesting variations. And so, we've kind of come full circle. We've seen the incredible power of the market, but also its pitfalls. And it leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Where do you draw the line between a free market and a helping hand from the government? This is a debate that has raged for centuries. And trust me, it's one that will continue to shape our world for years to come. So the real question for you to think about is, what do you think the right answer is?